Thanks for joining us, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes, I think, and then we'll get started. Please do introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from today. Got people from Ireland, it seems. Got Brian from Mace Business School. Thanks for joining us again, Brian. Sabine from Yorkshire. Gildren from Puerto Rico. Thank you very much for joining us. Leomar from Scotland. Thanks for joining us again, Leomar. Sergio from Tortola. Zandra from the Netherlands. Great to have such an international audience join us again for this third session. Chantel from South Africa, thank you very much for joining us. Paolo from London. Guy from Canada. Awesome, thank you so much, guys. I think we'll just give it another minute and then we will kick things off. Got Margaret from Barbados. Michelle, who's an AI researcher who's previously worked for Anders Pink and is based in Sheffield. Michelle, thank you very much for joining us. Norma from California. Eleni from London. Ines from Saudi Arabia. Barbara from Argentina. Such a diverse audience. It's great. Okay, well, I think hopefully that's given people a chance to join. So we will kick things off. This is our third session on AI-powered learning. And today we're going to get a bit more hands-on with the actual Zavmo tool itself. So I will throw over to Juliet, who will take things away. Thanks, Juliet.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Harry. And lovely to see you all here. Thank you very much for giving up your time to join us for the next hour. So as Harry said, this is the final session of our webinar series on AI-powered learning. So thank you if you've been with us for all three of these. And, you know, if you want to catch up on any of the other sessions that you haven't been able to attend, they are currently on YouTube. So hopefully this presentation will last about 45 minutes. And then if there are any questions, I can certainly ask them. And if not, you know, we're always available through socials and, you know, through email as well. Okay, so let's dive in. So the first session that is now available on YouTube was very much about neuroscience, really looking at how the brain works and beginning to sort of ask questions like, how the learning that we currently deliver, is that best suited for the way the brain to optimally take in new knowledge? And obviously the conclusion of that presentation is no. You know, we can do more in terms of you know, instructional design and the delivery of learning to make it you know, more interesting for learners. And then the second session was very much looking at the structure of the AI tech stack, comparing that to the SaaS tech stack, and saying, you know, there is considerable you know, considerable improvements that we can do now. AI has arrived in terms of how we kind of maximize the learner engagement. And then the final session is looking at Zavmo. So what Zavmo is, I'm going to actually dive into Zavmo. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing of Zavmo because it's a personal learning you know, coach. And so, you know, but it'll certainly give you a flavor. And then when we deliver the beta testing logins next week, hopefully you will all have signed up to be beta testers, and, you know, you can go in there and explore Zavmo yourselves. So that's where we are. So today's agenda, again, just a quick who we are, the problem, the solution, just talking about the different types of skills, and, you know, in terms of the 3 Fs. Then I'm going to go in and actually show you Zavmo. Then I'm going to talk about, you know, where we think the product's going to go. I mean, obviously, we're looking forward to feedback from, you know, your good selves here and the beta tester community before kind of finalizing it. But we do have a couple of ideas on where we're going to take the product from here. Then briefly on ethical considerations, and then just, you know, sign up form for beta testers. So Who am I? I am Juliet Denny, the founder of Growth Engineering and Iridescent Technology. My passion is very much, as I've said before, is very much on this idea of learning or engagement, trying to get individuals to be passionate about their own learning and their own development. And how do we do that in a way that, you know, basically leans into their natural curiosity? And so that's what this series has been about. And that's why, you know, I have been spent the last sort of 20 years in the learning technologies field, just trying to make learning more interesting and more accessible to, you know, any and all type of learners. So growth engineering has been around for 20 years. I'm sure most of you have been, you know, subscribed to our newsletter and are very, very familiar with what we do. But Iridescent Technology is a new organization that I started about 18 months ago, really focused on AI first learning applications. So we're doing a lot of research and development, and you know, hopefully we will be launching Zavmo next week. So just a quick fact, you know, it's clear here, or two quick facts, you know, it's clear that there are a lot of people in the learning and development world that are very eager to look at ways that they can deploy AI within their learning and development function. And we're certainly having lots of conversations with large corporates in and around that. There's a real keen interest to understand how AI can be harnessed in order to make the learning outcomes for their organizations considerably better. And, you know, I think there's also a recognition from, you know, L&D professionals that, you know, the buzz in and around AI is not overhyped. There is just an element of exactly how do we utilize AI in L&D, and hopefully, you know, this Zavmo presentation will give you some ideas of how it could be utilized, and open up some creative ideas of you know, what we're not covering here, and potentially where it could go. So the problem, kind of where we left off the last two webinars, is really a big question in terms of, you know, is learning able to deliver a kind of personalized experience so that learners are really clear what their development looks like, so what their career development path looks like, why you know, that career development path is the right one for them, and also delivering the content in a way that is unique to the current role they're in and where they want to go, right? So making the learning experience as relevant and as meaningful as possible is a critical part of gaining the learner's attention, and also, you know, sustaining the engagement while the learning experience is happening. So there's a big problem in and around getting learners to sustainably really, you know, focus their attention and ensure concentration through the learning program. And so this is a problem that we're hoping that AI will allow us to go somewhere to solving. So what we've created with Zavmo is basically something that is very, very personalized. So from the get-go, we're trying to break down the different issues involved in how do you get attention, how do you keep focus, how do you keep engagement, in order to basically, you know, improve the overall learning experience. And the key to the solution is this idea of massive personalization. So really, really focusing in on ensuring that the learning is exactly where the learner needs it in order to maximize their engagement. And so, you know, the Zavmo project really is on a mission to leverage the power of AI in order to personalize, you know, the learning experience for each individual, driving better return on investment for, you know, organizations that are, you know, putting learning and development together for their teams. And so what Zavmo has the capability of doing is moving from, you know, changing not one to many. So at the moment, if you have a piece of e-learning or you're delivering, you know, into, you know, a classroom or whatever, you have one teacher at the front and then it goes out exactly the same way to many people. We want to move away from that, and we want to move either to a one-to-one coaching environment or a multi-agent mode where you have multiple subject matter experts delivering content to you in a way that is perfectly suited to your role, right? So the one-to-one element, but also the many-to-one element. And you can see how important this is in the area of like mentorship and coaching. So, you know, we should be able to have a situation where it's not just subject matter experts that are delivering content to you in a highly personalized way. It could also be mentors and coaches from, you know, throughout your organization, but also AI agents as well, acting as mentors and coaches. So this is really where we're trying to move the learning experience to. And where we are really focusing the skills gaps on are the three like major areas of you know, skills. So the first skills area is foundational skills. So the foundational skills allow us to migrate from, you know, one functional area to another, and these can be seen as, you know, your basic sort of requirements when you go into the a work environment for the first time. So that would be kind of level 2 or 3 foundational skills, moving all the way up to the types of skills that you would need if you were, you know, level 7 director type role. So foundational skills are the ones that are nothing to do with your functional role. So if you're on project management, or you're in engineering, or you're in cash flow management, or you're in whatever it might be, foundational skills are the ones that basically allow us to understand whether we have, you know, the foundational skills, you know, enough to lead an organization, you know, through the higher ranks of responsibilities. So foundational skills are the first, and foundational skills, often what we find is that the foundational skills aren't necessarily right for where you are in the organization. So obviously, if you're being asked to, let's say, organizational skills or leadership skills, the requirement, if you're a level 7, will be very different than if you're a level 3. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that there's clarity in terms of the steps that move you through from a level 2 or a level 3 all the way through to level 7, so that you can be proactive in acquiring these skills. The next area of skills is functional skills, and these functional skills should be based on your job description or standards that are accepted within your organization. So, you know, in terms of where Zavmo uses these functional skills, it's through the National Occupational Standards, but you can put any standards into Zavmo. We just happen to using the National Organizational Standards, which are aligned with, you know, all of the qualifications in the UK, and aligned to, you know, ISO and those types of institutional standards as well. And then finally, you've got future skills. So the majority of organizations that, you know, I speak to, you know, they are somewhere in the journey on ensuring that the skills that they're being asking their teams to upskill on are based on their job descriptions, but also take into account where that individual wants to go in their career path. But the future skills haven't necessarily been defined. And of course, future skills now, in this massive period of change that we're going through with AI, are critical. So the future skills that a level 2 might need are going to be very different than the future skills of a level 7. So part of the problem is communicating to those level 7s that they need to be actively looking at standard operating procedures within their organization, and then looking at how, you know, AI can basically deliver solutions, you know, off the back of understanding what those SOPs are within their department, which will be very different to, let's say, a level 2 or a level 3 that will, you know, be you know, expected to be using AI on a daily basis to understand what a scraping tool is, etc., etc., etc. So these 3 buckets of skills are really, really important when we start looking at, you know, career mapping and trying to basically drive people's development. And are we communicating really clearly what those foundational skills are, what those functional skills are, and what those future skills are, that are needed in their current role, but also where those skills need to be in order to, follow their ambitions and grow into further roles. So in terms of Zavmo, I am just going to launch into the structure of Zavmo, so you've got an idea of basically what you're going to see in the demo. So we use a really simple 4D process, okay? So the 4D process is really embedded in the idea of trying to maximize the neuroplasticity, so i.e. the engagement when the learner is going through the learning process, okay? So why we have the 4D process is, first of all, we want it to make it sure that it's uniquely tailored to you. So the first area that the conversation happens is discovery. So this is all about understanding the individual. Now, with regards to how that's prompted, it can be prompted in a very open way, which you'll see in Zavmo at the moment, or it can be very specific. So if Zavmo as a platform is already integrated with your learning management system or whatever it might be, there might be elements that Zavmo already knows because of the integration with your learning management system. But the idea of discovery is really to get underneath the hood of the learner in terms of what their interests are, what their hobbies are, what their neurodiversity needs are, in order to make sure that the learning is delivered in a way that suits them. The next element is discussion, and this is about habit forming. Okay, so we want the learner to have the feeling that the training is not being done to them, it's something they've agreed to. So the discussion area is about scheduling and creating the learning in line with what they want. And you'll see this on the demo. Then we go into delivery, and then we finally go into demonstration. So the delivery element is the element of delivering the learning objectives, right? So the knowledge piece, which is actually a little bit shorter than the demonstration piece, because as we know from Bloom's taxonomy, what learners are really interested in is engaging with the higher elements of learning. So they don't want to just passively receive information, they actually want to play with it and use it. And this is where the demonstration stage comes in, which looks at what role they're doing now and how they can use role plays, use case studies, use scenarios in order to actually practice those skills. So that's the 4D stages, and you'll see that when I walk through. So in terms of the data lakes that currently are within Zavmo, is we've used the National Occupational Standards. So these are nationally recognised within the UK, and also the Ofqual framework. So that is every single academic and vocational qualification that is recognised by the UK government. And so by using NOS, which is the National Occupational Standards, we can benchmark any role against any level. So this is basically between level 1 all the way through to level 7 in any in any industry. And how the government comes up with NOS or the National Occupational Standards is through working with industry, leading industry participants, in order to put these standards together. So when we are basically showing the NOS standards, and we're benchmarking current job descriptions against NOS standards, it's very clear that they are fit for purpose in terms of aligning with each individual industry. And with regards to Ofqual is the resulting qualification framework. So Ofqual basically has very kind of strict guidance with regards to the learning objectives, learning outcomes, assessment criteria of the particular vocational or academic qualification. So that basically allows Zavmo, those two elements allow Zavmo to benchmark where the learner is, and then basically create and deliver the content in line with those quality guidelines. So this obviously helps ensure that the content that's being produced is absolutely right and relevant for that learner. And so that's the big difference between utilizing a platform like Zavmo rather than something like LinkedIn Learning that probably doesn't have it matched to the specific level that you are in the organization. The other key thing that we really want to improve is neurodiversity. So, I think for those of you who attended the last sessions, when you are dyslexic or when you do have ADHD, it does make learning, somewhat more difficult than, if you're not, afflicted with is neurodiversity. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with Zavmo AI is to really ensure that we were delivering the learning in a way that, really appealed to those people that, are dyslexic or have ADHD. So for example, if you are dyslexic and you are using Zavmo to learn maths GCSE or leadership 101 or whatever it is, you will get the content double line spaced, you will get long words phonetically spelt. So there's lots of things that will basically go into the delivery of the learning that hopefully will allow you to focus and concentrate a little bit better. Also, the prompts are slightly different. So if you're flagged as being neurodiverse, you will get, let's say extra support and also more reinforcement, particularly if you're dyslexic, because your short-term memory is not so good. So there's elements that you will see in terms of the neurodiversity element there as well. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hop straight into Zavmo. So for those of you who've signed up to our beta test, you will get your login to beta test next week. So I'm just going to pop on in here. Oh, dear me. Oh dear, that's not what we wanted to happen. I had that all set up really nicely. And that has, hold on, I'm going to have to just stop sharing for a minute. Sorry about this, guys. Not what was in my plan. Right, okay. So okay, so I've just logged in, and the opening message is, what do you want to learn about today? So it's just initializing, and I'm going to start chatting with Zavmo. So the prompts that you're seeing now are they can be changed with regards to with regards to what the organization wants, and they could also be automatically the learner could also automatically be put into a stream of learning if at the discover phase you already know that is part of, let's say, annual compliance or whatever it might be. So at the moment, basically what's happening is it's just going through and it's tagging some information to help Zavmo ultimately when it comes to the delivery and demonstrate make it a bit more relevant to me, so it understands what I'm what I'm looking. Sorry, I'm trying to type as well as I so in terms of what's behind this is all being tagged and flagged via XAPI. And so what Zavmo is doing here is then basically just summarizing the information that it's got for me, and then basically now we are moving forward into just clarification of what has been captured. Just moving through here. So the reason it's asking these kind of questions is that ultimately the stuff that it's picking up is going to be used in the demonstrate phase. Yeah, so it wants to know why it's important to me, and then it's kind of moving through. Then now it's actually assessing and saying, okay, fine, I don't want to just give you any old course or build any old course. I want to make sure that the course is right, for where you feel that you are. So I'm going to say that I'm 2 in this. And then again, it's asking me what I'm going to use the knowledge for, so that when it comes to the demonstrate phase, it can actually, build case studies and do role plays for me. So now it's just summarizing, and you can see why I'm not going to go through the entire process. But obviously you'll be able to have lots of fun when you're doing it yourselves. Okay, so I'm now going to stop, because that kind of gives you an idea of the experience that you're going to have next week. So what's happened here is that you can see here that we've moved from discover to discuss. Okay, so and what Zavmo's been doing is basically tracking all of this information, and it's going into our data lake. It's flagged and tagged using XAPI. So rather than in the way that you would have like a database in a kind of SaaS platform where you are much more, there's much more kind of structured data in the data lake. It's much more unstructured, and what we're using AI for is to basically allow us to see patterns and see connections that potentially we wouldn't be able to in a more kind of linear kind of data structure. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to the Zavmo showcase. So in terms of so you looking at the roadmap now, yeah? That sounds like, yeah, we're looking at the roadmap.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So in terms of where we are with the roadmap at the moment, because we haven't launched and we haven't got any feedback from, or we've got limited feedback, from clients and individuals using it, this is not 100% nailed on, but these are the key things that we think we're going to be delivering over the next 2 or 3 months. So the first one is kind of this idea of kind of multimodal. So at the moment, what you're seeing is a very kind of simplified chat interface. But one of the things that we want to be doing is moving towards avatar integration. So the chat will be a very similar sort of feeling when you're chatting to it, but it might be using voice, and it might be using avatars in a kind of a space, in a kind of virtual space. So that's the first thing, and it will be multiple different types of avatars as well. There is a little bit of concern about using avatars, because sometimes it can just look a bit bad. So we're currently kind of working through what that would necessarily look like. So avatar integration is on the development roadmap. The next element is a gamification concept called the Mind Palace. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Mind Palace concept, the Mind Palace concept is about allowing the brain to basically structure information in a way that is logical to that individual. And so one of the things that we want to do is, rather than build, let's say, a kind of linear library not showing the connections in knowledge, what we want to do is build something more akin to a mind palace, so that when a learner goes into their mind palace, they can see the connections of the areas of knowledge, and how they basically interact within the the three skills areas. So the mind palace is going to be a really important differentiator to hopefully help reinforce the memory and the key learning objectives of the learning that the learner does. So it'll be quite a different and unique space for the learner to reflect back on, because it will allow the learner to see connections between things that they've done, and how those connections work with regards to their role now and also their role in the future. We've also got a really dynamic reporting engine that we're working on at the moment. And what is really unique about Jan is that the reporting engine is all conversational based. So rather than actually clicking from downloads or tabs or anything like that, all you do is you literally just type into the admin interface what you want to see. So I'd like to see how many, which departments have the lowest penetration of functional skills for level 2s. And obviously it will just bring up the relevant graph. So it will create the relevant graph, and it will basically populate that data to you. So what we're trying to do is bring that element of data science to anybody's admin role, to make it really, really easy to do that level of kind of investigation or understanding of where their organization is. There's also performance management. So once you've done the benchmarking of the roles against standards and job descriptions, you've done the delivery of the content in line with the right level, we can then go on to say, right, okay, well, on the back of that, we can integrate things like institutional ISO standards to allow the learners to understand how they're actually going to apply those skills in the area of project management. So once we've actually delivered the content and we've done the demonstration stage, within the demonstration stage, we can actively identify projects that the learner can be part of in order to actually deploy those skills. And then obviously we've got a skills ecosystem which consistently will allow organizations to ensure that they are future-proofed with regards to future skill sets. So because we are able to drop in future skills at any point, that means that that there's a continual momentum to continually grow and develop in regards to how that organization wants their learners to be developing in order to meet the demands of the market as it goes forward. One of the other things that we're trying to do is once we've plotted each individual within an organization, we are then in a position to say, to ask that individual whether they want to be a mentor or a coach or a subject matter expert for specific things. And so use that individual or tag and flag that individual as any of those things, so that we can create an ecosystem of people that can support the learner journey. So that brings us to the end of the roadmap. Those are the things that we're thinking of adding on to Zavmo over the next couple of months. In terms of ethical considerations, one of the things that we're working really hard on is ensuring that the benchmarking standards that we're utilizing, are recognized by the UK government and are accepted by our sort of corporate beta clients. So one of the things that we're really interested in ensuring is that there is kind of broad recognition of a set of standards, and that those set of standards you can easily passport through in order to maximize your chances of career progression. So that's really where we're bringing in the kind of ethical considerations, and we're looking at, you know, the prompts that we're using for Zavmo to ensure that although we are trying to maximize learner engagement, we're also trying to do it in a way which is not time hungry. So there's lots of things that we're looking at with regards to, you know, how that will be done, but just very cognizant of the fact that we need to have some really clear guardrails in and around the data lake in order to ensure that, you know, we are, you know, the standard of education that Zavmo is creating for each individual is benchmarked against, you know, standards of excellence that are widely recognized. And once we've done, you know, the UK standards, then we'll obviously be moving through to European, Indian, you know, Canadian, you know, Australian, you know, any country that's got a set of standards, then those are the kind of standards that we would want to put into our data lake. So, you know, what we're looking for is obviously just ensuring that, you know, we have continuous improvement. This is a journey that we're on. Obviously, we don't have a load of you know, best practice to look at with regards to, you know, an AI first learning and development application. And so the only way that we're going to ensure continual improvement is by, you know, working with practitioners in the field, and ensuring that we are actually delivering a really excellent educational experience for the learners. And so continuous improvement is definitely something that we're baked into the prompt engineering of Zavmo to ensure that Zavmo is picking up any kind of red flags or things that aren't working for the learners so that we can continuously improve, but also, you know, us as an organization ensuring that we have a kind of mindset of continual improvement as we kind of move forward. In terms of, you know, where Zavmo can be integrated with, it can be integrated into any learning management system. So, you know, in the first instance, we'll be integrating this into the growth engineering learning management system, because it is essentially, you know, a chatbot, but it can go into any learning management system or any intranet or any HRIS. So, you know, it's very flexible in terms of, you know, how the learner can basically experience it. It doesn't need to, you know, you don't need a new platform for it. It can be integrated with whatever learning tech stack that, you know, you have at the moment, which hopefully makes it a little bit easier to ensure that, you know, it's not a massive, you know, change management project. And so that basically brings us to the end of the demonstration, or the end of the webinar. I hope that gives you an idea of what we're going to be launching this week. If you're not a beta tester and would like to have a play around with Zavmo, please do sign up. The more the merrier. We're very much looking forward to feedback. We're going to create a Discord community as well, so that we can get the feedback and you know, on the experience, and find out what you guys are thinking, so that we can make any changes to the program. So yeah, that's it from me. I don't know if there's any questions, but if there are, I would be very happy to answer any questions. And yeah, looking forward to your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Juliet. We have had some questions coming through as you've been presenting, so I will put some of those to you now. And then if there's any more, please do drop them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that, and I can also raise them to Juliet as well. So first question from Chantel, who asks, with regard to Zavmo, including educational and skills frameworks applicable to the UK, does that mean it will only work effectively in the UK?
No, I mean, basically these frameworks, frameworks can be used anywhere, and there's a lot of similarity between qualifications that are offered in the UK, for example, or in India. So, that there are a lot of similarities within the kind of vocational and academic, arena. So although at the moment we're just using NOS and Ofqual, once we begin to add other national standards in there, it will be, directly relevant to that country, but I don't think there'll be a huge amount of differences. So one of the things that we've found really quite interesting is that although there's not a lot of difference between studying maths in India versus studying maths in the UK. So I hope that goes some way to answer your question, but basically, there shouldn't be a huge amount of difference. That doesn't mean to say that we're not going to ensure that we do have as many different frameworks in there as possible. It just means that what we've seen so far in terms of the data lakes is there's not massive differences between vocational skills frameworks in multiple different countries. But no, it'll still work. What I would say is that and I don't know if this is a question that is adjacent, is that AI works particularly well in English, American English, and English. So although we can obviously translate the conversations into other languages, we have to, the AI and the models that we're using work in English. So basically the way that delivers to the learner is that although we might be delivering to that learner in, let's say, to simplifies Chinese or whatever language, the actual AI process of creating the content and creating the the role plays and the demonstrate stage and the inquiry in the first two stages is actually in English. It's just translated after, so that the learner gets the translated version. So I don't know if that was a question that you had, but I think that's kind of an interesting element of the world of AI as well. And obviously that does dovetail into, ethical considerations with regards to, traditions and cultural norms and all of that kind of stuff. So that is one area that, we just don't know what that experience is going to be like. But in terms of the content, learning maths is very similar, if you're in Canada or you're in the UK. So I don't think the data lake is going to be an issue there. I think it's more likely to be the kind of cultural elements that obviously we haven't tested and trialed yet. But I think that's definitely going to have to be something that we're going to have to watch.
Awesome. Thanks, Gia. I've got a couple of questions from Liamar, a couple of separate questions. So first of all, he asks, is there going to be an app version? And then separate question talking about the avatar integration. What's the vision for this? Is that going to be a kind of cartoon character that's animated, kind of similar to what Duolingo doing, or is there a separate vision for that particular feature?
Yeah, so great question. So we are thinking that mobile is going to be critical because obviously when you're doing conversational learning, one of the things that I've noticed with conversational learning is that it's quite intense. So whereas, you might kind of listen to a podcast for 45 minutes, or you might sort of do a piece of e-learning, because you're not really focused on it, you tend to do conversational learning in shorter, more frequent bursts. So you might do, let's say, 10 minutes each day. So if you're doing 10 minutes each day, the reality is that you're going to want that on a mobile phone. Now, having said that, we are moving forward with the app development. So the app development is going to happen between now and the end of December. But what we think, how it will work is that you won't get the first 2 Ds. So you will have to go, onto a normal web browser to do the first 2 Ds. So that's discovery and the habit forming kind of discussion. But then the delivery and the demonstration can be done on the mobile. But it could be that all of it's done. But that is kind of the plan at the moment. And then with regards to the avatars, this is something we're going to leave in the hands of our clients. So basically, we are somewhat going into the area of avatars with a certain amount of intrepidation because it can look really terrible. And so what we are most likely to do is to work with our clients to basically define, what avatars they would want to use. And then basically it would be a customized approach depending on what the client basically wanted. But in the first instance, I'm not 100% sure that we would have anything other than just a really simplified graphics. But that remains to be seen. I mean, it really depends on how the clients see it moving forward.
Lovely. Thank you, Julia. Okay, question from Anne Power, who asks, how crucial is it to have good quality, consistent and detailed job descriptions? They're not always high value detail wise.
I mean, I really love this question because this is something that I've been talking to, our beta set of clients about a lot. So what I'm finding is that organizations in some areas have detailed job descriptions. In other areas, they don't have detailed job descriptions. And so when we do the first test cases, so we've been uploading job descriptions into Zavmo and basically doing a gap analysis between the job descriptions and the industry standards. And what we've found in most cases is that the industry standards are more holistic, and there are areas in the job descriptions which are lacking. And so the first element is to basically benchmark the job descriptions. Now, for some organizations, what they're saying is that if we've got job descriptions, what we want a gap analysis against national standards. And for the areas that we don't have any job descriptions in, we want to use the national standards that we've approved in order to create the job descriptions. So, that is very easily done, using, the NOS database. So that's kind of where we are in that process. So the departments that have job descriptions will, first of all, just have a kind of double check. Is this job description as full and as correct as it should be? Because the issues that we're finding is, first of all, in some job descriptions, there are wildly different levels. So let's say in functional skills, you might have, a job description that has a level 5, but actually that role is only getting paid for let's say a level 3. And in the same way, you might find that in that particular role, there are no future skills. So what we need to do is we need to, work with the L&D team to identify how they want the gap analysis to happen and what they want the single source of truth to be. And typically what I'm finding at the moment when we're working through the initial kind of use cases for organizations is that it's a blend. So some departments have job descriptions that they want to not move away from. Other departments, might, appreciate the help of using national standards in one of the 3, skills areas. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a learning process. But what it is illuminating is that for a lot of people, there is not complete clarity in their job descriptions with regards to, functional, foundational, and future skills. And this is absolutely critical for, maintaining competitiveness, as an organization. So we have to start with, are we clear on where we are now? And are we clear on where we want to get to from an organizational level, but also from an individual level as well? So yeah, that's basically some of the work that we're doing, at the moment with Zavmo.
Lovely, thank you, Julia. I've got a few questions from Valerie. We'll try and tackle them all together. And Valerie, hopefully I've managed to capture them all here. So we've got a question on data security. So she asks, how safe is the data? We use this for personal growth or mental health apps, sorry. There is super sensitive information being input. How do we protect this from misuse? And then maybe just this other question on integration. Can we integrate Zavmo with any LMS? Will it work with tools like Thinkific, Teachable, Wix online programs, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so with regards to the data, our sort of go-to-market strategy is that in the same way as anything that is in your learning management system is yours, the data within Zavmo is obviously is yours. So the data collection, any data that you collect is obviously yours and is on a dedicated server. So if we're integrating Zavmo into your existing LMS, you would have the same control over the data as you do in your LMS. So Zavmo is a service, and obviously it needs to be connected via single sign-on. So what we're looking at in the initial stages is that we will put it into existing learning systems that have already got the user provisioning information. So the types of integrations that we're going to be doing immediately are any learning management system, and also any HRIS, because obviously we're going to need access to that person's role, that person's line manager, that person's in order to shortcut some of the user provisioning information that you saw Zavmo capturing when I gave you that kind of brief demo. So some of that we can obviously get automatically. So when the learner logs into Zavmo from their LMS, it will already know their name, it will already know their role, it will already know all of those kind of things. And if there is a job description, then it will just go straight into the training needs analysis. So it'll go straight into the training needs analysis, looking at two elements. The first element would be knowledge. So do you know what you need to know, yes or no? And rate your confidence. But then most importantly is this something you do? So we're looking for behavioral training needs analysis as well, so that we can say, okay, fine, so you might know it, but you're not doing it. So from that point of view, there will also be a training need as well in one of those three functional areas. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Julia. Okay, maybe we've got time for a couple more questions. Got a question from Thoy, which I think has sort of already been answered. Is it possible to use Zavmo in any other language other than English? Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's possible. Question from Steve. As far as the delivery and demonstration, does Zavmo generate content and quizzes?
Oh, I am so glad that question was asked, because I missed that. Okay, so this is so good, right? So one of the things that we're very keen to do is ensure that there's learning is a conversation, right? So it's more like a coaching conversation, but we totally understand that there's lots of organizations out there that already have libraries of learning that they want to use. Now, that we might not be able to fully understand, because we might not have the metadata on that library to understand what level that those courses are right for, right? So in the beginning, we were talking very much about, there's a career path that will take you through from a level 2. I've just started in the organization all the way through up to director level. And, within those 3 skills areas, you obviously want to get the right level of information and learning to the learner, which is pertinent for their role. And so some of the learning libraries that we're looking at, so things like LinkedIn, things like Udemy, they're not mapped to that vocational level. However, that doesn't mean to say that we can't use them. It just needs to be pointed out to the client that it wouldn't necessarily be tailored perfectly the way that we would like it. But the short answer is that any learning library that you've got on your learning management platform or is provided by a third party like LinkedIn Learning, Zavmo can use. So Zavmo has the choice of basically creating content or basically looking for content in other libraries and pulling that back in order to deliver out that the delivery and demonstrate stage.
Lovely. And we've got a question from Saul, who asks, are you using another AI model as a base, or is Zavmo homemade?
So Zavmo is it's a combination. So we do use lots of different types of AI models. So although I've said that there's only 4 stages, so the 4D process, the models that are underneath Zavmo, there are quite a few different models that we're using underneath. So we use, Claude for some things, we use OpenAI for other things, and we also use cheaper models. So obviously, if we were doing all of this through, one type of AI model, then it would cost us a fortune. And so we're working very hard on some, open source models, as well as, some of the more expensive models. So yeah, it's a real mishmash of things underneath the hood in order to basically make it deliver in the way that we want to make it deliver. But as we move forward, hopefully we will be creating a data lake that's so extensive that we'll be able to build, our own models pretty straightforwardly. So yeah, that's the sort of plan at the moment. What we are concerned about at the moment is the cost of actually running the model. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens next week in terms of how long people are spending on Zavmo, and how much, usage a typical learner would be spending in terms of, burning through those credits. So the model that we're thinking of utilizing is very much like cost plus. So there would be, a fixed kind of licensing for Zavmo, but then on top of that, there would be, a cost plus model based on usage. So if you found that some of your learners were using it a lot, then obviously you would be able to see what their usage was, and if learners aren't using it a lot, then you wouldn't pay. So that's the kind of sort of go to market ideas that we've got at the moment with regards to the commercials.
Great, thanks, Sia. And we'll just take this one last question from Ines, who asks, can Zavmo be trained to provide an individualized feedback to students after a formative assessment?
Yeah. I mean, Zavmo, in terms of the prompt engineering, it can be as, specific, as you want. So you can put in, do this assessment, and then the feedback. So, I mean, the answer to that is that you can obviously tailor the prompts as long as it goes through, those 4 stages. And there will be some organizations who maybe initially won't even use the 4 stages. They'll just do the training needs analysis and then the gap analysis and stop before, it goes on to the delivery and demonstrate. I mean, I hope that answered your question. I hope I understood that correctly. But ultimately, yes, you can change the prompts, you can add in content to the prompts in order to inform the questions that Zavmo is asking, and how Zavmo is, the conversations that Zavmo has can certainly be tailored.
Awesome. All right, well, I think we're just about to hit the top of the hour, so we'll wrap things up there. But I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you very much for the engagement and all the great questions and feedback in the chat box. We really appreciate it. We will be following up with an email following this session with the recording and a link to the beta program as well, so you can still sign up if you're interested in getting hands-on with the Zavmo tool itself. And then I'm sure we are planning to do future sessions in the coming months as well, so keep an eye out for details about that. And yeah, please do reach out if there's any further questions or if you'd like any more information. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to Juliet as well for hosting 3 great sessions. We appreciate your time, and yeah, have a great day.
Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Cheers.